Whenever I see a story involving a notable, some type of celebrity, against another celebrity, the first thing I think about, obviously, is that this is a work. To use the professional wrestling term, it's a work. It's a deliberate angle. It's contrived nonsense in order to perpetuate or promote some type of publicity or what have you. Next, when it comes to, this is as a trial lawyer now, when it comes to the old days of libel, defamation, for the most part, people would say, oh, come on, stop it. He's a public figure, forget it, we'll get to that in a moment. That's all changed now. Ask Rudy Giuliani, ask others as well. Libel today is a different kettle of fish, as we say. So it's important for us to look at what's going on. By the way, let me give you the introductory, the pro-em. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, blah, blah, blah. I hate doing that. I love when they ask me to like something. I haven't even listened to the person. How do I know if I even liked it? Okay, I'm going to like it. First, what is this notion of libel? It's a fascinating subject. Libel. Libel is a statement that's false, that hurts, that defames. That's what it is. It's a very, very simple thing. It's the idea that you have defamed, you have hurt, you have destroyed somebody's reputation. You've exposed them to hatred, contempt, ridicule, obloquy. Causes them to be shunned or avoided, or that which has a tendency to injure. And by the way, I'm looking at this right now, and the jurisdiction, I would imagine, this most probably would be California. So we got to look at California law, of which I am reviewing this. Now, for lack of a better term, this is, for the most time, this is academic. If something is merely said, it's slander. If something is recorded, it's in the newspaper, when we had those, a magazine, online, or if it's in a radio format, TV format. Why was libel considered worse? Because it was recorded. It lasted longer. It could be gone. You can go back and see it yourself. Slander is evanescent. It's there for a moment. And if you weren't there, well, you didn't hear it. It has to be published. It has to be stated. I can't go up and whisper something to you. I can't say, listen, you perform undonism. I think you're a frotagist of the first order. I think you're a paraphile. And if nobody heard this, it's not libel, because it's got to be published. It's got to be publication. And that's usually not a problem. That's the whole idea. It also can't be, we're not going to get into these, can't be privileged. You know, you can say stuff on the floor of the house. You can say stuff in court. We're not talking about that. But basically, it was a statement. It was a statement that was made. It was something, and it hurt people. And this is the part that I've always wondered. And by the way, you have to ask yourself, is it negligent? Yeah, you just said it. You should have known better. And you probably have heard of New York Times against Sullivan. If Jimmy Kimmel were to sue, which I do not believe he is, but if he were to sue Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Kimmel is the plaintiff, and he is a public figure. And because he is a public figure, he has to show that the statement that was made against him, this allegedly defamatory statement, was made with malice, actual or otherwise. And that's defined as something that is absolutely, it's made with malice. A reckless disregard for the truth. Reckless indifference, just, you didn't even care. Okay, fine. So you got a little bit of a extra burden. Now, what did Aaron Rodgers say? You can go back and you can say, well, did he kind of insinuate this Epstein Island? He says, that's not what I said. A jury could argue and say, I don't think he said you were a pedophile or anything. I think he might have said, and there are other aspects, different particular media, different particular aspects that you can use, different doctrines, like innuendo. Innuendo, by the way, is not an Italian suppository. But it, for example, if you say, the former mayor was a crook, and you can say, okay, well, that former mayor is so-and-so. You didn't mention him by name, but But let's not get into that. I think it's a shady case. I don't think anybody's going to be interested in this. But I got to tell you this one thing, which is the most funny. Normally, in cases where you have to sue, or where you sue for defamation, you've got to show damages. You got to show like, look, I was hurt by this. I was, I lost a gig. I lost a job. They fired me from ABC, whatever it was. Defamation or libel per se, this is my favorite. This occurs when a statement is so inherently horrible, it's so inherently damaging, it's so bad to one's reputation that the plaintiff, the person suing, doesn't need to prove or show that he suffered any actual damages. Just the fact that it was said is good enough. In fact, California law, and I quote, said that statements that tend to expose the plaintiff to hatred and contempt and ridicule, aversion, disgrace, and to induce an evil opinion of him in the minds of right-thinking citizens. It's Jimmy Kimmel. Anyway, sorry. And deprive him of their friendly intercourse or society may be considered defamation per se. Isn't that great? Intercourse. They also refer to as Congress when you like sexual intercourse or Congress. But normally, most states have like 4 basic things that you can say where the subject matter. This is per se versus per quad. We're not going to get into that. But normally about 4 statements will qualify. But in California, 9 types of statements are considered defamatory or libel per se. Number 1, statements that allege that a crime was involved, or having been indicted, convicted, or punished, or that there was a crime. Now, is pedophilia a crime? Not really. Pedophilia means you have an attraction for. And that might be bad enough, but that's not a crime. You hear it all the time in our internet world. Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile. Well, what he liked, because pedophile is a part of something called chronophilia. Chronophilia is somebody who was attracted to someone by virtue of their age. And there's a pedophilia, a phebophilia, a hebephilia. There's gerontophilia for old people. Anytime there's an attraction based upon age, then that's a chronophile. That doesn't mean you're involved in an island. So anyway, the first one is charging or alleging somebody with a crime. Number 2, labeling a plaintiff a communist. What about a Marxist? What about a woke radical left? I don't know, but anyway. Third one is statements that my favorite is accuse you of having an infectious, some type of loathsome disease. It used to be in the old day leprosy, and then became AIDS was something. So the third one is accusing someone of having a loathsome disease. Something that subjects a person to public hatred, ridicule, or contempt. That's kind of redundant because that's kind of why we're there. Next is accusing a plaintiff is impotent or unchaste. Especially a woman. You're an unchaste woman, a fallen woman, a harlot, a slattern, some meretrix, whatever. Okay. The next is statements that injure you when you're business, something that affects your livelihood. Next is charging or alleging that a plaintiff with a violation of some type of, they call it confidence reposed in him. Next, statements that cause a person to be avoided or shunned. That's which I think kind of goes to kind of all encompassing. And then accusing somebody of treachery against associates. So we get into kind of like this common law parlance. But the idea of this is that what did Aaron Rodgers possibly say? What did he say And how close to it. If I were to say, for example, like the plaintiff, I don't know about that, but that guy Jerry over there, I know somebody who's awfully glad his name was left off of the Epstein list. Well, what does that mean? Did you say he was on the list? No, I just said he was awfully glad he was left off. Well, why would he be even on it? Well, I never said he was. This is where we get into this weird. I know one guy who might be somebody, And then you got to ask yourself, okay, does Jimmy Kimmel or anybody want to go back and have their entire body of work perused and looked through to see whether he, how do I say this? Whether he, what am I trying to say? He ever did anything where he might have joked about it? I know in Hollywood, for some reason, there was a whole slew of people who think the whole idea of kids being abused and if you listen to Cat Williams, people with dresses and all. Are you saying that in your particular your world you would dare suffer based upon an industry where this is the norm? I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. It's one thing for you to say the plaintiff, whatever, was on Epstein Island, involved himself in unsafe, unfair, or illegal activity with minors, was involved in criminal sexual battery, human trafficking. That's very specific. But this kind of stuff, like, I don't know. And also, if I were to accuse somebody of being a pedophile, if I said Joe Blow, the defendant, the John Doe, was attracted sexually to little girls, I could see that being a problem. But attracted versus, and I think the argument can be made to a jury that whether you actually did something or whether you're merely attracted, the distinctions are so fair. But this is what we're talking about. And let me just leave you with this. Years ago, prior to Rudy Giuliani, I would have said, forget it. I don't know anymore. I think it's too difficult, too hard for you to have two individuals. And from a practical point of view, does ABC really want to go if it's the NFL? And blah, 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 blah? No. And then there's discovery. And then you get to find out, well, let's go back. Did you do a show called The Man Show? Well, let's run through this. Did you worry about your reputation for this? And then you can go back into that. And but that was years ago. It was different context. It's a mess. The bottom line is this. Are these people really hurt? No. All I know is their names are in the public conscience and awareness and conscious. Not conscience. Conscious. Awareness, the ken, so to speak. And one could argue in a very strange world, in this weird world that we live in today, that is actually a benefit. So in any event, I'll just leave you with that. Bottom line prediction, this thing's going to go bye-bye. And if they do, make some type of a contribution to a mutually agreed to charity. Let's don't agree to anything. Let's make a shake hands. Forget it. Admit no guilt and just move on. But I guarantee you, both sides. I think Aaron Rodgers, by the way, has appealed because a lot of people are finding out that his ideas regarding COVID and vaccines, as loathsome as they are, speaking of loathsome diseases, as loathsome as the idea is Jimmy Kimmel, there's a lot of people out there who agree with him. Everything else, whether it's tinfoil, by the way, it's not tinfoil, Jimmy, it's aluminum. We haven't worn tin in years. In any event, that's it. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. Please write below accordingly. And again, please like this video. You know the routine. Subscribe, and comment as you see fit.